Well, good morning, Greenwich, and welcome to the Monday, March 6th edition of the Basement Academy as we begin our new week together. Appreciative of yesterday's gathering, two wonderful gatherings in worship at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Great to welcome Heather Sorensen as our artist in residence, and a beautiful anthem that she has written was sung by the choir, I Will Do a New Thing. What a great word, a great text and melody. So appreciate that. And then we, between services, as many of you know, because many of you attended, had an opportunity to present information from our congregational survey. In the event you missed the forum there, if you go to the church website, you'll see on the right-hand side, blue button, congregational survey, and right at the top there is the live stream recording of the forum from yesterday. I think the audio's good enough that you can hear. And then also just next to that is the PowerPoint presentation that Eric actually goes through. So you can just click through that and review that at your leisure. So anyway, invite you to do that. And before we get into our morning question that has to do with the survey, it was a question that was sent on Friday, interestingly. I do want to read Psalm 126, one of the sweet little pilgrim psalms, and it's in the context of being away from the land, being in exile, and then being brought back home. And so Psalm 126. When the Lord brought back the captives to Zion, we were like men who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. He who goes out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with him. Carrying seed to sow, watering that with our tears, coming home with a fruitful, abundant harvest. Lord, hear us, all the places that we feel we're in exile in our lives and separated. Bring us home. Okay. I'm going to read this question that came to me on Friday, very timely. And interesting, I don't know who submitted the question, and so I'd be curious if the person who did submit was there yesterday, and if they might submit in a follow-up question based on the survey results and the comments that I'm going to make today. So let me read the full question. Don, I'm asking this question before the coming survey results are revealed, but a substantial portion of Greenwich will very likely not agree with realignment and ultimately leave our church. Hopefully that's not the case and a moot question, but if it is, what will Greenwich do to address the resulting financial negative impact? Less congregants will obviously reduce income. Will we have to slim down staff or curtail mission expenses or what? Especially given last year's financial shortfall, this seems to be a coming storm by our own creation. What is our plan? Very thoughtful question. Appreciate that. So thank you, whoever you are who submitted that. Again, invite your follow-up based on the results shown and my remarks that I'm going to make. So I'm trying to get everything in today. We'll see how it goes. Might have to spill into tomorrow. But so just kind of at a high level overview, 433 surveys returned. Of those, 354 indicated they were members. So that puts us at about 75% of our membership. 75 non-member responses, okay? That's all on the site. I was struck by the high level of participation. Okay, so that's the first thing that caught me. I have not seen the surveys themselves. The session meets tomorrow night, so Tuesday night. We're not going to release all the surveys to the session members. We're thinking those were confidential, but the comments without attribution, okay, so just the comments that were made are going to be provided along with obviously the raw data. There is some deeper dives that we want to do and need to do, some slicing and dicing of the folks who said they supported or aligned with Greenwich and those who aligned with Peace USA. How many were members? How many were non-members? Just, I don't know that right now. And so we'll have to, shouldn't take too long, but we're going to have to do that analysis. But of those who feel more aligned with Greenwich, it's 389 of the 433 responses, with 37 saying they aligned with Peace USA. The numbers don't always line up because not everybody, I guess, filled in every question. But so 389 divided by 433 gets us into that 90-ish% range of those who feel more aligned with Greenwich. And so that is kind of an interesting data point. We're going to work with that more. And so the question here that comes on Friday, again, before the results were revealed, assumed a substantial portion of Greenwich will very likely not agree with realignment and ultimately leave our church. That's the statement of the question. It's the assumption. I do not want to diminish that there are 37 individuals who say they feel more aligned with the denomination than with Greenwich, and 45 who would not be supportive of the session's decision to go forward pursuing the formal realignment process to separate from our current denomination towards another one. So those are real people, okay? And so I don't diminish that. Roughly 10% of the respondents. So if you stretch that out, 10% of our church. If this is a statistically significant response, right? 30% response would have been significant. We have a 75% response. So statistically, this is very significant. So I kind of want to tease out the assumption. So the assumption is substantial portion, not in agreement, and will leave the church, therefore leaving the church in kind of a financial quandary. May happen, so I'm not going to suggest that may not happen. It appears that it's not as substantial a minority. I don't know what the questioner was assuming, so again, would invite perhaps some comment through the question box. Had this been a 60-40, 50-50, 70-30, 30% of our congregation would be like 150-ish members. That's bigger than most churches in our presbytery. That would have been a significant number. 10% is still, these are real people whom I know. I don't know who responded, but I know everybody in our church. So by definition, I know who the folks have responded. I just don't know necessarily their particular response on this survey. But so those are people I'm in relationship with who've been at Greenwich for a while, perhaps a very long while. And so that's of concern to me, and I wish no one to leave. Last fall, for 8 weeks, 40 studies, I talked about discipleship amid disagreement. This is what I've been talking about I didn't know we were going to have an opportunity to do a survey. John Molina Moore, our general presbyter, gave us a great gift why don't you do a survey to see if the congregation aligns with the concerns of the leadership. The leadership is unanimous. All the elders and pastors believe we're out of step with the Peace USA. And so this is a way, imperfect as it is, a way of discerning if the congregation also perceives that sense of misalignment with our denomination. We've tried to present a fair comparison of the beliefs. There are some criticisms, and I suspect fair. Again, I haven't read all the comments, but we've tried to make the chart and the comparison fair. We've not tried to set up a straw man. We've tried to source the beliefs or the practices or priorities of the denomination. We've had to summarize, and in the summary, there are some who are concerned that we have used language that is not that is misrepresenting the Presbyterian Church. So I acknowledge that and respect that, and perhaps you are right. But it was nearly impossible to summarize 17 documents into small statements so that people could catch the gist. All that being said, I've been talking about discipleship amid disagreement for months. This is the context. Yeah, it was the election last fall. That's a piece of it. But the deeper context, if you go back to the Basement Academy studies from last August, September, and October, those 8 weeks, I'm drilling down on all this. I just didn't know we were going to get to do a survey, and I didn't know what the survey would say, even if we could do one, right? But I know that there's disagreement in the House on all kinds of options. As I joked yesterday, paper or plastic, Virginia Tech or UVA, or none of the above, Republican or Democrat, Greenwich or the PCUSA. So whatever topic we would put in front, you aren't going to get 500 people to agree perfectly on anything. So the question is, we're always going to be in some measure of disagreement with our fellow Christians. How will we conduct ourselves? How will we live in those places of divergence, of conviction or opinion or belief? And obviously, as it gets to our faith and our faith practices, this is more significant than the team we root for, right? These are deeper realities, and we acknowledge that. I don't want to diminish that in any playful way. Fully affirm and support folks of differing conviction and conscience. I am one of those currently in our presbytery and in our denomination. I have been in the minority the entire time I've been at Greenwich. National Capital Presbytery has always been a left-leaning, progressive, liberal, expansive approach to Scripture, not historic, but amending the way we look at Scripture. It's been that kind of presbytery the entire 22 years I've been here. I've been received well, treated with respect. I've served in leadership. But part of it's because the way I have played the game. I don't come in pointing fingers. I don't come in confronting and saying, you are heretics. You've diverged from the Scriptures. I acknowledge all along that this is a liberal denomination, has been all along. And so left, more liberal than conservative since the reunion. And so I've just learned how to be a minority voice in a majority progressive denomination. I know how to do that. But increasingly, the voice that I speak, not one-on-one conversation, there are differences, and we've learned to be respectful around those differences, but the official stance and statement of the Presbyterian Church increasingly wishes not to hear what I teach and what Greenwich teaches and practices and believes around human sexuality, around what it means to be human as male or female, what it means to protect and preserve life in the womb, what it means to confront the tribalisms, the particular one we know as racism. I'm absolutely against racism. The Presbyterian Church is going about the battle the wrong way, in my opinion. And so it's not all one issue. There are many issues. And so how to be a minority voice, but increasingly the voice that I have, the voice that I bring, the teaching that is not welcomed in the Presbyterian Church. It's hard for folks to understand that, particularly if you're a minority voice at Greenwich. But see, at Greenwich, we give you the microphone. We give you the opportunity to speak. We don't denigrate. You're not written against. Whereas in the Presbyterian Church and in the presbytery, that is the case. I have been written against. I've spoken at presbytery, been given that platform, and then been criticized for things I've said in the comment section. I respect that. That's the world we live in. I've got a thick enough skin to handle that. But we try to treat the minority voice with respect and care, recognizing it's a minority voice, partly because I know what it's like to be the minority voice. That's partly why it is. So the assumption here that a substantial portion are not going to agree and will ultimately leave, I question the assumption, not by confronting the questioner. I would like to examine that. Why is it that you feel you have to leave? You don't have to leave. Just like Greenwich doesn't have to leave the Presbyterian Church USA. This is something that we're trying to explore openly, thoughtfully, deliberately, prayerfully, quietly. If you're in the minority in this survey, you might have felt exposed yesterday. You might have found yourself there going, I don't know if I fit here anymore. And that's my pastor's heart goes out to you, because I believe you do fit. But I understand, because what you may be experiencing today in light of those results yesterday is what I have been feeling for a very long time at the Presbyterian Church USA, at our presbytery. Go to a presbytery meeting, I'll hear the preaching that I disagree with. I believe it's faulty analysis and study and interpretation of God's word. I believe there's faulty application sometimes. But I hang in because I believe this is a confessing Christian sister or brother, just like I disagree with my Baptist friends and my Roman Catholic friends and my Lutheran friends and my Episcopalian friends in places. I disagree with my Presbyterian Church USA friends in places also. So I sit at presbytery meetings, and increasingly I feel this just isn't my tribe. And I don't mean to be tribal, but I said this just, I don't think I can enter the discussion fully. We're trying to solve problems, and I just don't think my voice can be heard and welcomed if I were to say, here's how I think we're supposed to go about dealing the issues of, and then issues of the day. So I suspect some folks are going to leave, and I'm sad about that, because these are people that I've been in relationship with for some time, perhaps very long time. I think it's unnecessary, but I support and welcome and affirm conscientious decisions. Anyone who feels they must leave, go in peace, not in anger, not in frustration. Go in peace. We are sisters and brothers in Christ. And as Greenwich goes through this process, we'll get in conversation with our executive presbyter. He has been very peaceful. He's saying, you don't have to leave. We're not going to run you off. He acknowledges that ours is a minority voice in the leadership of our presbytery. He's not denying that. But he's saying, we're not going to come after you. Nothing so malign as that. The piece that I think, I tried to name this yesterday, the thing that has gotten lost in the survey is this notion of we are out of step. Greenwich is out of step. That is, the leadership of Greenwich is out of step with the Presbyterian Church USA. And now it seems that 90% of the respondents do seem to line up with the leadership of the church, believing that this is the approach to these issues. So it would seem that Greenwich, on the whole, not completely, but on the whole, perceives itself to be out of step, out of alignment with the Presbyterian Church USA, because the Presbyterian Church has settled these issues. These are not up for debate again. That's what folks may not understand. The debates happened 5, 10, 15 years ago, and the progressive side fought and fought and fought and lost the vote, came back year after year after year, and eventually won. And then the scales have tipped, and now these are settled issues. So that Presbyterian Church USA column is not up for debate. It's not like Greenwich is going to go in and suggest we change the Book of Order, change the way we do things. This is a solidly progressive communion, faith communion. These are the beliefs that are established and the practices and the priorities. And so it's not going to change. The trajectory, in fact, I think the velocity is moving, so the trajectory getting downstream, the divergence is widening more rapidly in these recent years. And I say that not in anger, I just say it as fact. And so what's lost is we don't want to be an offense to folks who deeply believe otherwise on many of these issues. I respect how you believe. I don't believe that way, nor do I wish to be an offense to you who believe that way. And yet we're still trying to walk in communion. And so, I'm just tired of constantly feeling like I have to apologize to folks who are coming to Greenwich and they say, is this a PCUSA church or not? And I say, well, yes, but I'm tired of just doing a yes, but. Somebody who comes in looking for a McDonald's hamburger, do you serve McDonald's hamburgers? It says McDonald's on the outside. Do you serve McDonald's hamburgers and those wonderful salty fries? Or do you serve Wendy's hamburgers? Or do you serve Arby's? So, if you watch I made that analogy, we're not a brand. We're not of the PCUSA brand. So you go to McDonald's, you expect McDonald's product. People coming to Greenwich expecting the PCUSA product on, the beliefs and the practice and priorities find themselves, I thought this was a PCUSA church. That's the point. We're effectively not, because our message is so off-brand. You come into Greenwich, you don't get the PCUSA product. You get a warm, loving congregation. You get the gospel of Jesus Christ. You get the sacraments. You get beautiful, wonderful music and worship. You get pastoral care and an efforts to love you and your family well, that I hope is true of every church everywhere. But on the message, this is not the Presbyterian Church USA product. It's a different product. And that's it. It's no more complex than that. And it's no more angry. It's not angry. It's just tired of feeling that the need to apologize and explain and defend who Greenwich is. And we've just imagined as a leadership, what would it be like to be in a denomination where we could go to a Presbyterian meeting and hear sermons and workshops and seminars and teachings that, we'll send our people to that because that's what we believe is a faithful interpretation of Scripture and a faithful application of that towards youth ministry, towards racial justice ministries, etc. That's all. We just would love to go, to the conference, as it were, where they're singing our song and they're encouraging us to run in the way that, instead of going and always kind of being on the defensive. And that's it. I think that's it. So, I didn't get to the end of the question like I thought I might not. And so my choices right now are to turn this off and re-record, like I do sometimes when I get to the end of one of these and say I missed it. But I think what I'm going to do is just pause here and let this question, I'll pick up the question again tomorrow. And then maybe I'll tease a third day out, because the elders will meet on Tuesday night. So on Wednesday morning, perhaps I'll offer some reflections based on what happens at the Tuesday night elders meeting. Because I do believe the question drives at a very important, is there going to be a financial impact of this survey and ultimately of a larger process? Is this a storm of our own creation? And I really appreciate that thought. So let me ask you to pray. Pray for the leadership, pray for yourself, pray for our church. Pray that we would love each other well through the differences, that we would love the Lord well by the way we honor one another through a time of what may be significant disagreement for some. And then let's patiently walk through this together, okay? So let's close now in prayer, and then we'll pick up here tomorrow. Let's pray. Lord, you love this church, and you love each one of us, and you've loved Greenwich, and you love the Presbyterian Church USA, and you love our sister churches in the Presbytery, and you love us despite our disagreements and the ways we dishonor one another and so dishonor you. And so help us as we walk through a very tender and sensitive season at Greenwich, particularly for those who may find themselves in the minority in this survey. May they not feel maligned, called out, denigrated, demeaned in any way. May their voice and lives be respected and heard and welcomed and loved. And may we learn together as we walk in some uncharted waters. And so guard us, O Lord, through this day, as hear our prayers for one another, for this church, for this process, for what lies ahead. And so help us, Lord, to find a deeper discipleship, deeper commitment to love one another as you have loved us as we walk through this process. Hear us as we pray. In the name of our Savior Jesus, who taught us to pray together, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. May God keep you. May God bless you. May God make his face to shine upon you, those you love, and upon our church this day and forevermore. Amen.